Kundalini awakening. Are you setting yourself up for failure before you even start? We're going to look at how to avoid the dangers and talk about some of the myths about dangers of Kundalini awakening, because it doesn't have to be this way. Now, this is going to be a big video, so I have notes just to make sure I cover everything we need to cover in this video. Okay, so there are certain myths about Kundalini awakening that in themselves are dangerous. Like saying it's dangerous all the time. Is it? Does it really have to be? Okay, so one of the biggest myths about Kundalini is that it sort of happens overnight. Now, whilst the actual rising of Shakti can happen overnight and does tend to happen to a lot of people, boom, suddenly, it's not just that. There is a lot of pre-work that you need to do beforehand. This is very important. We're going to be looking at these things because it is so important to go through. And it's not just about Kundalini Shakti rising, it's also about connection to Shiva. So the second myth here is everyone thinks it is just about energy work. Shakti is part of it, yes, but there are things we have to do. Again, we're going to go into this deeper. There are things we have to do other than just the energy work. It's not about just going to a guru and receiving energy and boom, up it goes, and there's so much more to it than that. The third dangerous thing is trying to do it yourself. Seek guidance when doing this, because there are so many things that can possibly take you on a path and make it unsafe. With just a tiny bit of guidance can set you straight. Another myth is that Kundalini awakening has to be dramatic. Now, if you have the right guide and the right teacher, it's actually quite the opposite. It can actually be a very smooth path. If you have the right energy master, the right facilitator, the right guru, whatever you want to call it, it can actually be, as I said, a very smooth journey. So again, it goes back to seeking guidance. Is Kundalini recommended for everybody? Now, whilst everybody can possibly get there, obviously there are certain people that have to be very, very careful with this. And it's best to avoid doing this for these people. And those are the people with mental problems. It's as simple as that. Mental disorders. If they're bipolar. Now, don't get me wrong, there is Kundalini syndrome that can look like being bipolar, but then there's bipolar. People who are schizophrenic, people with these disorders, it's just not recommended for those people. So right, now let's go back. Whilst Kundalini, the rising, can be done through transmission, there are vital steps that need to be taken beforehand. I've spoken about some of these in my Kundalini Explained video because this is a crucial part about it. So the first thing we have to do is overcome our fears. This is a psychological, this is a programming thing. It's nothing to do with energy. We must overcome our fears. Because if we don't overcome our fears, as things start to rise and open, you may become scared about results. You may suddenly think, oh, dark entities are going to attack me and things like this. Yeah, that is all fear-based programming causing these problems. We must overcome desire. Because Kundalini awakening is not about a goal. It's not about achieving something. Because if we're just looking for a goal, what happens when we get the goal? It's what we look for another one. It's like, it is about a journey. It is about going through a process. So whilst we are still attached to the idea of goals and all other sort of worldly desires, as it says in yoga and tantra, it's going to cause us problems because these attachments, again, you know, Star Wars gets this right with the Jedi, have no attachments to things because these attachments are going to cause you problems. Oh, I can't do this because of that, and if I do this, this might happen, and attachments from desires. The next thing we have to overcome, and again, this is really, really, really important. I can't stress it enough. Overcoming egoic impurities. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to awaken your Kundalini? Is it your path to discover more? Or are you doing it because you want to? Are you doing it to use it for financial gain? Are you doing it for, why are you doing it? What desires do you have? Desires, fears, egoic impurities. They're all very similar things. When we start to awaken, when we start to realize that we can have certain abilities, there are many people on this path that start to think they are better than others because they've done this. Egoic impurities. And that leads us down a very dangerous path. It's called spiritual ego. And you will find a whole range of people on this. From people making videos of my Kundalini awaken experience. It's like, what do you need to show other people about your experience? Why do you have this need to explain it? Now, don't get me wrong. To be able to help others to explain your own story can be a good thing. But you can tell, if you go on social media and you look at so many of these experiences, people claim they have had Kundalini awakenings when you actually analyze what they're saying is they've had a life crisis. They have had too much dopamine. It's sort of their ego's got to a point and it's like, no, I'm going to stop you here. I'm going to blow you out. I'm going to give you a wake-up call. That's not a Kundalini awakening, but they think it is. And so you're getting a lot of bad advice. So they're saying, oh, this is dangerous. Oh, this happened to me. Oh, this. Blah, 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 blah. No, you had a life crisis. It's as simple as that. You didn't overcome your fears, your desires, or your egoic impurities, and your ego decided to point it out to you. That's not a Kundalini awakening. Let's keep going. Once we have overcome our fear, our desire, and our egoic impurities, we then have to, so I'm not talking about necessarily ego death. The ego is there for a reason. It's there to protect us. This is a good thing. But it's the impurities there, the selfishness involved. So the next thing we need to do is we need to seek a connection to what we could call the divine source, to the energy, to the feeling, open our emotions. And this is the first level of letting go of duality, good and bad, which comes back to fear, which comes back to ego. Good and bad is based on perspective. Talk about this so often. You can go and watch other videos. I discuss these things so often. Once we have sought out that connection to the divine source, to a non-dual system, to an understanding, we can naturally align with the next phase. And this is a deep truth and understanding of non-duality. And we must learn to accept and speak these truths. We're going in order with the chakras. Whilst we still speak from a point of egoic impurity, fear, whilst we still speak from a point of the perspective of me, you are not truly aligning with that divine truth. These are all things we've got to go through, because each thing is just helping us break these bonds. And any of these bonds that we don't break are going to cause us problems in an awakening. Once we've done that, the next thing we can start to align to is our intuition. And we must understand the difference between taking a decision based on all the previous things and discernment. Discernment is a point of knowing, it is a point of understanding what is right for the flow, for the connection to one. I'm not saying the difference between what is right and what is wrong. There is right and there is right. Discernment shows you there is a truth. Now understand, when you learn discernment, and again, this is a very dangerous path here. There's a very fine line between discernment and spiritual ego, because there are a lot of people that speak as though they're speaking from a point of discernment, but the underlying place they're speaking from is spiritual ego. I'm better. Yep. When you speak from a place of discernment as well, this is another thing you must remember. This is why it's a very fine line. When you speak to someone else from this place, they do not understand what discernment is. So their natural reaction is to turn around and say, oh, you're being very egotistical. Oh, it's all your ego. Oh, it's all your... Because that's the only thing they know. So see the fine line. Someone speaks from a point of egoic perspective based on having opened these things, but they're not quite there. They think they're deeply rooted. They think they're superior for some reason. And someone who doesn't think they're superior, they do not think they're better. The reason they say something doesn't come from their ego, it comes from a higher intuition. What is higher intuition? Again, is there a voice in your head that tells you to do something that is actually coming from self-preservation and bettering the self? And something else that is said to better the person being spoken to, or bettering humanity in itself? It's a very difficult one to balance, and it is a very fine line. And one's judgment is going to make that line even finer. And other people's opinions are going to make this line even finer, because we're going to more and more subtle connections. Does it make sense? Once we have achieved aligning with intuition, following coincidences, going with the guidance we receive, acting from a place of discernment for the better of the other, for the better of all, rather than the betterment of self, then we can achieve a union with universal consciousness. That is the connection to Shiva. So these are, if you've noticed, not only what we have to do, they are also the true stages on a psychological level of a Kundalini awakening. Whilst we do not go through these, now people will tell you so many stages and what you feel and blah, 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 blah. These are the true stages that you must go through from the principle of the mind to truly have an awakening. Now, of course, it doesn't stop there, because those are the psychological points. And as we break down these psychological points, we can start connecting to the energies. If we do not work on this side of us, if we do not work on our shadows, the shadow work, those are the biggest shadows out there. And in fact, they cover all the shadows out there if you think about it. But then we have the side of the energy. People will talk about divine masculine energy, divine feminine energy, the traits of what that means. Stuck in duality. They haven't got nearly where they think they may have got to. If we base this on the principle of energy and flow, people talk about Ida and Pingala, male and female, masculine and feminine. But if we talk about this from the principle of, as I always do, electromagnetical, there is no electricity without a magnetical field. And there is no magnetical field without, we might not say it's electricity, but without electrons moving, right? Electrons moving is electricity. The thing is, we need them to move down a path. In our houses, that means the path is a copper wire, but static electricity, there is no wire, it's just a connection. Same with lightning, there is no wire, it's just a quick spark. So there is no, they're not dualistic, they work together. The electromagnetical force. If one is out of balance with the other, again, this can cause problems within us as we move deeper into the energy flow. And again, this comes back to where we need to seek guidance. What an electrical current feels like. Pins and needles, tingling. What does a magnetical force feel like? A density, a gravity, a heaviness, a denseness. Perhaps you felt some of these different sensations if you've been receiving transmissions, if you've been walking the path, if you've been connecting to the energy. A very typical one is to feel a denseness in the head. Well, that is an excess of magnetical energy rather than the electrical energy. So we have to clear that in a certain way. As we release blocks, energy traumas stored within the system, we have to make sure we release those parts that are connected to the fear, the desire, the ego. So it's not working one and then working the other, because they are deeply connected, just as electricity or electromagnetical are connected. The mind and the energy are also connected. And the point of connection between the energy and the mind, the psychological part, is of course the emotion. And this is why as we release things psychologically or energetically, we have releases of emotions. Or not just releases, because they could be releases of the negative things in the first stages as we're releasing the fears, the desires. But then in the higher stages, it's not about negative emotions, it's about positive emotions. It's about feeling states of relaxation, states of unconditional love, states of awe, states of bliss, states of higher connection. So it's the releasing and then it's the connecting too. But they are all related. It is not, nothing about this is dualistic. It is all about yin and yang. Yin and yang are not two different things. They are within a circle. They are two parts of the whole. And within every white, there is a bit of black. And in every black, there is a bit of white, because they are connected. And when we form them together as a whole, when we understand they rotate and they're connected and they're always joined and they're never separate, in between we have the balance of the up and down of the sine wave. This is what the yin-yang symbol represents. So we must understand all of these things. We must work through all of these things. I really encourage you to seek guidance when doing this. It's what I do. If you're interested in working with me, go to theawakeningenergy.com. Come and train with me. But I'm not the only one out there that does this. There are other people out there. Just remember to do your research and make sure they are coming from higher states. There are many people out there that will talk about, oh, I connected to, perhaps if they are Christian, I connected to Jesus, I connected to the Virgin Mary, I connected to, if they are Hindu, I connected to a guru, I connected to, and I spoke to them. If they are, well, whatever religion, their programming has connected them and shown them something. So just because someone had a experience with the thing it makes it easiest for them to understand, doesn't mean to say that they are suddenly a guru. But perhaps they are a guru. They're not a guru, but they are a guru. What is he talking about? Guru is a person that comes from a place of truth that shares knowledge. We could call that a guru, a true guru, a sadguru. There are many names coming from different places around the world. At the end of the day, what we're saying is a teacher that has a certain amount of knowledge, understanding, discernment, connection. That's all we're saying. Now, they could be someone who sits on a throne, up on a stage. That shows a certain amount of egotistical principle, doesn't it? Or they could be an everyday master who goes around, who doesn't wear a uniform, who doesn't dress specially, who doesn't... It just shows. But also we have to understand people love to put people and ideas on pedestals. I've seen quite a few great teachers put ideas on pedestals to the point that they are impossible to attain. Just as a teenager puts a pop star on a pedestal and thinks, oh wow, this is amazing, I can never get there. But of course they can. With hard work and determination, they can get there too. And there are many teachers out there that do exactly the same thing. Be wary of them. See you in another video.